Hello, everyone. I'm Rob Goodwin of YourBostonSports.com. On location at the World Series Club of Greater Hartford. Tonight's guest is Chris Chambliss, former New York Yankee. It's September 8th, 2022. And even though Chris Chambliss is a former Yankee, there are a lot of tie-ins to the Red Sox in the American League East. He started off with Cleveland, and then mid-70s with the Yankees, and finished up with Atlanta. And I got a couple of guests joining me right now. I think Brian Brady. See, you're here? Brian Brady's here. How are you, sir?
Give me that microphone. You cheated.
You're lucky I got my own.
He brings his own microphone.
So
I should bring mine.
I was just talking about the Red Sox and Yankees in the mid-70s, and of course the 78 playoff game was a big one, right?
Oh, yeah.
And we have another guest coming in.
You got to steal it from me, Steve. If you go.
You're going to go in the middle.
I'm going in the middle.
All right. So the 78 playoff game was obviously key, and it's a story that's been told, a lot. But remember that
Carlton Fisk game.
Well, no, that was 75.
Was that
78 was the playoff game.
Okay.
But remember the Red Sox starting pitcher was Mike Torres, who was a free agent with the Yankees after the 78 World Series. And irony is that he ended up starting the game against the Red Sox. And did you know that the playoff game in 1978 was because they tied for the American League East on the last day of the season? You know how they decided where that game would be played? Take a wild guess. Steve?
That I don't know.
I don't have a clue.
It was a coin flip. It was a coin flip.
No
It was
kidding,
easier back then.
Yeah, it was. And remember, there was a lot at stake here. There's no more playoff game like this, game 163 after the agreement this year. But remember, that game decided first place in the American League East and a berth in the ALCS. That was it. The ALCS was 5 games. So there was a ton at stake. Some people say maybe that game would have been better off being played at Yankee Stadium based on the hit that Jerry Remy had, and Lou Piniella stabbed it and stopped a run from scoring. Right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, also, remember who pitched for the Yankees? Ron Gidvey started the game, and they brought in Goose Gossage for a 2-inning save. He gave up 2 in the 8th and had 2 on in the 9th before Yastrzemski popped out to end it. So this game was kind of down to the wire.
Unbelievable.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you go back before 78, the Yankees won the World Series 3 years in a row, 77, 78, 79. And they beat who? All 3 times? The Dodgers.
Oh,
the Dodgers.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and the former Mr. October was born in 1978, and we know who the real Mr. October is.
The former one, yeah.
The real one is, named Ortiz, right?
Yeah, so, well, we know the other one.
Now Chambliss won the Rookie of the Year in 1971,
Yeah.
And in 1976, when they played the Royals in the ALCS, and they played the Royals in the ALCS 3 years in a row, Chambliss had the game-winning hit. It was a home run to decide the series in Game 5, to send the Yankees to the World Series. Now, the Red Sox played the Reds in 75, right? That was the fifth game, right?
That was the game.
We went to Game 7. The Yankees played the Reds in 1976. How did they do?
They did beat him?
No, they did not. In 1976, they did not.
76?
So how did the Yankees do in the World Series in 1976?
They lost that?
They lost. So the Red Sox pushed the Reds to 7 games. Yeah. But the Yankees got swept by the Reds in 1976.
That's the game they got swept.
Yeah, they got swept in that series.
But looking at it, if you're Chris Chambliss and what he did and what he meant to those years, it's insurmountable what he did in the playoffs. But once a World Series starts, it's amazing how all bets are off.
Oh, you can't bet on that.
It's all bets are off.
Right.
The good players, the great players, they don't play so great in the World Series. When the pressure's really on, it's those guys that, you wouldn't think.
That's right.
Hitting 220, 240, and boy, they're hitting it out of the ballpark.
Mike
Exactly.
Torres, I still think till this day, some of the people you're third and fourth starters for the Red Sox in 75 and all, and your backups and everyone. Forgotten people. Forgotten people. And you could lump Chris Chambliss into that, of what he meant in the playoffs. And then once the series came, it was all about Reggie, all about third.
That's right.
It's interesting to read upon that, but you can't. People forget the meaning in his contribution. It's pretty amazing.
Absolutely. And so he was with the Yankees up through 79, and then he went over to Atlanta.
Which I think a lot of people don't remember. I don't think a lot of people remember that.
And never saw the postseason ever again.
And never saw them. There were some pretty bad teams. I'm trying to think if that was pre-Dale Murphy or there was some pretty bad Fulton County Stadium teams. But you never heard, as Rob just said, you never heard from Chris Chambliss again.
No, not again.
Right. And did you know that he actually did not play in 1987? He was signed by the Yankees in 1978. In 1988. He retired in 80. He didn't play in 87. The Yankees brought him back in 1988 and he one game.
That's right.
In May.
So he could retire as a Yankee, or
I don't know.
Was he retiring then, or was he?
It wasn't a one-day contract. He actually had a pinch hitting appearance. He was 0 for 1, and that was it.
Do you know? I remember Jim Rice told me this story a few years ago at spring training about the old. You want to retire players retiring with the team, but back the concept for signing for a day, even in the 80s, as you just said, was so new. Even the players didn't really realize what went into it. Okay, I'm going to sign for one day, but retire a member of the Red Sox or the Braves and all. It was, and Jim Rice said it was even more complicated then than it is now.
I'm not sure I'm for these one-day contracts. Nomar Garciaparra retiring a Red Sox, which he did because he signed a one-day contract. I don't know.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he did. But that's a good point, though. Things are much more complicated today.
And if we can finesse baseball and rules and records and everything, I may be cynical here, but you're trying to tell me we can't designate, hey, Chris Chambliss retiring as a Red Sox, Carlton Fisk, Red Sox or whomever, Chicago, whomever. We can't write that in somewhere, but yet all of these other things, Hall of Fame, still controversial.
Right. And the only way you end up with a hat on is if you go in the Hall of Fame, and that's now chosen for you. There's no choice in that.
Isn't that amazing?
So what was the last team that Pete Rose played for? Was Philadelphia, right?
Yes.
But he's notorious for being a Cincinnati Red.
Right, and if he was in the Hall of Fame, I'm sure he'd be a Red. Right?
Now, somebody told me that he has no restriction on going into the Hall of Fame. He's restricted from going into being on baseball fields or going in all that. But that's what the commissioner mandated.
Right. Well, he'll never be elected. He cannot be elected.
I heard he would have to be elected, but if he were to be elected.
No, he cannot be elected. Right? Pete Rose cannot be elected.
Oh, really?
It's the commissioners. Bargiamani took that stand, and that stand is still there.
Okay.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, he can't be elected at all, that stand.
It doesn't, but it doesn't even get that far.
Okay.
It can't even be called up for. It can't even get in. It can't even get that far.
Done deal.
It's still remarkable. Still, what was it, a couple of weeks ago? Pete came back for some Phillies
thing, yeah.
And a lot of people weren't really into seeing him. Still to this day, he's working the crowd to get in the Hall of Fame.
Working the cards, signing cards. That's pretty much what he's usually doing these days, right? At card shows. That's what I heard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
if he came to the World Series Club, I wouldn't go. I wouldn't go.
Okay. Yeah.
A lot of people would, though. A lot of people would, but I don't think we could afford. I don't think the World Series Club could afford him.
I don't think any of us getting in the door can afford it.
That's true. That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah.
We wouldn't be here.
That's right.
Or-
Well, it's great getting together with you, Brian and Steve. This is the first time you've been on the show live. You've joined
Live
us
in person.
Yeah, you've joined us remote, but this is the first time live. So it's great that you made the trip.
This is gonna be fun.
Yeah, great.
It's a good one.
Great that you made the
Good to
trip
have
up
you
from
on board.
Maryland. Yeah. And Brian, always a pleasure. You know,
Yeah.
even though you're flimsy with the microphone there, always stealing it away from me. He always steals it away from me.
Am I going to need to buy one of these things?
He never
or what,
met a
you know?
microphone he didn't
I
like.
used to have a Mr. Microphone for my kids, you know, it'd be out playing
Bring
in the
that next time. You
backyard.
can use that.
Bring
Those
that.
orange ones, the orange bulb.
Oh, yeah. Those are good.
Well, great getting together. Thanks, guys.
All right.
And we're looking forward to seeing Chris Chambliss at the World Series Club of Greater Hartford here in Connecticut at the VFW.
Night, everybody.